Sports Minutes with Ziaul Raushan.
Money FM 89.3. It's time for Sports Minutes with me, Ziaul Raushan. Now, pro wrestling fans, mark your calendars because the Causeway Jam is set to shake up the scene with some of the best wrestling action from both sides of the border on 22nd of February. Grapplemax, Singapore's premier pro wrestling promotion, is gearing up for this inaugural cross-border showdown. And if you've never experienced live wrestling before, this is an event you might want to check out. But before we get into what's in store, let's take a step back and talk about the people behind it. Grapplemax has spent nearly a decade building up the pro wrestling scene in Singapore, and at the heart of it is its co-founder and CEO, Greg Ho. Greg, welcome to Sports Minutes. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm very excited to have you because I am a childhood wrestling fan. I lost my way slightly in terms of the fandom, but before we talk about the Causeway Jam and Grapplemax, you're a fan of wrestling, aren't you?
Oh, very much so.
And how long have you enjoyed WWF when I was growing up, now WWE, and who are some of your favorite characters?
Yeah, so since I was probably 5 years old is where it started, so I have my dad to blame for that, I guess. So that's when it was still on TV. I think that was, is it SBC or TCS?
Must be TCS.
Dating ourselves then, showing where we are.
Exactly.
So I think that time I think people probably would know people like Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, but for me it really was... do you know the Bushwhackers by any chance? Right, these two guys, they were never fantastic.
I think you're showing your age by telling me about
Bushwhackers.
Bushwhackers.
But the fact you recognize that is the other part here, right? So I think never really fantastic wrestlers, but they were quite strong characters, which my dad and I completely loved.
I blame my dad as well for bringing me into wrestling. It got so bad where my teacher had to call my parents because I was doing a D-Generation X kind of thing, which I think I'm not going to mention on air, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
That was a huge fine, so let's not do that.
But it's exactly fun to be talking about wrestling with the founder of Grapplemax, and I'm going to find out about Grapplemax in a sense where it started in 2016. Why do you start it?
Yeah, so I think, so the two of us, co-founders, Dennis and I, so we have been wrestling for a couple of years before that. And what we realized was that, there's a lot you can get out of wrestling, right? For us, we learned things like, confidence, public speaking, how do you present something on stage? And a lot of these we found applied to us in our work lives as well, whether it's, doing sales pitches, presentations, training teams. But at the time, it was difficult for people to get into pro wrestling. So only if you were, for example, you really, you die want to become a pro wrestler. There's a path for you. If you're a wrestling fan, here's a 3-hour show for you. And we thought, it's such a waste because, there's another way to create a more accessible first step for people to get into pro wrestling. And so the entire idea was, can we build a place where there's multiple ways to get into it, whether you want to be behind the scenes, you want to be in the ring, you want to be a fan. And how do we adjust, how do we create a product that can be appealing to many, many more people?
And you talk about pro wrestling, right? You mentioned Hulk Hogan earlier as well. In my mind, he's one of the greatest showmen ever as well. It's not just about being a supreme athlete in the ring. It's about being a showman as well. How does Grapplemax balance both those things?
Yeah, so I think it really starts from the training itself, right? And for us, one thing I really love, and it's a bit of a tangent here, is I really love going to theme parks, and once you enter past the gate, every single step that you face, the ticket person, the guy who ushers you into the ride, the performers, everyone there is part of this entire story. And for us, it's the same thing, where when people come to a wrestling show, they want to be immersed. I think we've gone past the point of, is wrestling real, is it fake? People know it's a performance, but they want to be in a place where they can be immersed for a couple of hours and believe it's real. So for us, we train our members to focus not just on the wrestling, the skill, the fitness, but also things like, again, stage presence. How do you completely embody a character? And again, this applies throughout the crew, whether you're a wrestler, whether you are the one doing tickets at the booth. Every single person, once we open the show, is part of that story.
And you talked about starting in 2016 with the vision of giving opportunity for those who want to go pro in terms of wrestling. Has that vision evolved in the interim 8-9 years?
I think it has, and yes and no, I suppose. So I think the overall goal is the same, which is to become the most accessible way for people to get involved. I think what has changed is because, for those who don't really know our history, our first 6 years were always based in shared spaces. So we were sharing spaces with a circuit training gym, Muay Thai gym, and so we were always a very bootstrappy sort of company, right? And we were sort of working with what we had. And the one feedback we had most of all was that they wanted a space that they could call their own. So 2 years back, we raised a bit of funding and we thought, let's go big and let's build, Singapore's pro wrestling performance production studio. And this is where it sort of became all in one place for anyone who wants to be involved in pro wrestling. So now in the studio, based in Ubi, we run everything from training 6 days a week to our monthly events, our tapings, even to things like community events. So we run things like, video game parties. We run things like watch parties together.
So it very much holds true to your tagline, which is where everyone is welcome, because you're doing so many things to make people feel welcome. But from a wrestling perspective, how do you balance it all in terms of keeping the sport as highly athletic but highly entertaining?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, right? I think, first of all, about the where everyone's welcome tagline, the key thing here was we found that, again, people want to get involved in pro wrestling in so many ways. And the inspiration really was talking to a lot of fans. And we asked them, you've watched wrestling for your whole life. Who do you share wrestling with? And the response usually is, I watch it by myself. I keep it to myself. And we ask why. And they say, because my family doesn't get it. They think it's violent. They think it's fake. Go watch MMA. Watch a real fight. And we thought, it's so powerful to create a space where people could come together and find a place for themselves in this sport or this art that they love. So if you want to get involved in pro wrestling, it's not just about, be a pro wrestler and finish that path. It is, you can get involved in different ways. We run things like, we just launched our first pro wrestling referee course a few weeks ago. And we thought maybe nobody would sign up. And we had 5. We targeted 1 and we had 5 sign up. And people want to get involved in different ways. We have now announcers, we have, ring bells, we have commentators. And, there's different ways to get in, different ways to stay as well. And
you talk about ring announcers, SPH Radio's one of our own. Sean Rick is one of the announcers as
He's
well.
He's the OG.
Exactly. And you talk about the interests. I know the Causeway Jam is already sold out. We'll touch on the Causeway Jam in a short while. But what's the interest like being in the fraternity? You talk about a high sign-up rate for the refereeing course, but the rest of it?
Yeah, I think we're doing really well now. I think what's happened a lot in the last few years was we focused very heavily on education. So again, people knew about wrestling, especially now with it being on Netflix this year. So people know about it, but they don't really know that there are ways to get involved. And you don't have to be this particular stereotype of perhaps muscle-bound guy who wants to slam his friends. There is much more beyond that. So what we're seeing now is we launched our fundamental course as well a few months ago. So this is now happening every 2 months, and it's been sold out every single time.
Wow.
And really, it's 4 weeks, 4 sessions once a week for $100. And it's a great way to get involved in pro wrestling. And people come in, and even if they don't want to be a pro wrestler for the long term, they experience in 4 weeks what their training is like. And most of them stay on.
I've seen some really cool videos on your Instagram page in terms of the public getting involved in this. And I can't wait to find out more. But let's talk about the Causeway Jam, which is happening on the 22nd of February. How did this idea come about?
Yeah, so this is actually the 5th iteration of Causeway Jam. So the first one was 2018. And okay, so just for context for your listeners again. So typically the idea of bringing guest wrestlers onto a wrestling show is not a new idea. But usually we'll bring down maybe 1 or 2 people from different promotions and go, we're focusing on him as a superstar or her as a superstar, and hopefully he or she draws some tickets. We thought we want to educate, again, Singaporeans and the regional fans that there are promotions around the region who are creating their own unique taste of pro wrestling. And so we thought, why not go bigger? Instead of bringing down just 1, 2 wrestlers from a promotion, what if we said, hey, bring down your entire team, bring down 5, 6, 7 people, bring down your announcer, bring down your referee, and show local crowds here to a new audience that this is what Malaysian wrestling is like, and hopefully in future this is what Vietnamese wrestling elsewhere. So that was the original concept. Can we sort of widen the scope of introducing people to other cultures?
So when you talk about bringing the whole village together, right? In my mind, again, showing my age, I go back to that WCW, WWE invasion almost kind of scenario. Did that play a part in terms of the storytelling where you are pitting? I mean, we are all cousins across the border, but there is a certain sense of rivalry, I dare say, especially, for example, in football, right? Are you trying to leverage on that to build a better story?
Yeah, I mean, we're both football guys, right? So I think things like, Singapore-Malaysia is probably the oldest rivalry that all of us know about. And so we always thought there is this inbuilt understanding, right? And again, going back to the idea of making it accessible, we thought even if you know nothing about who is on the show, who are the wrestlers, but you get the idea of Singapore versus Malaysia for the Causeway Jam Cup. Best of 5 wins the cup. That's a very instantly recognizable sense.
Yep.
So for us, the show is both exciting, competitive in terms of showing this competition for the cup. But the bigger picture really is working together with the Malaysians to really create this really incredible show for our fans to see.
And for context, how big is the scene in Malaysia for the uninitiated?
It's pretty cool. So a couple of promotions in Malaysia now, and I think they run shows probably about every 2 to 3 months. And each show tends to be sold out, maybe 200 plus people. So it's quite an exciting time around the region.
And you talk about a best of 5 concept where somebody is going to walk away with the Causeway Cup. Is that new to this year, or has that happened since 2018?
Oh, it's brand new. So every year we try and add a new twist to the story. So 2024, we thought there's enough demand now. Let's expand the show to a 2-city project. So we ran the first one last year in Causeway Jam, Singapore, second one in Causeway Jam, KL, which we plan to continue again this year. This year we thought let's add one more niggle. Let's add the cup as well. So it's a brand new concept this year.
All very exciting. So can you give me a rough sense of the rundown we're expecting in terms of the rivalries? Are there going to be 5 matches, all pitting Singaporeans against Malaysians? What's the plan for the day?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we've never done this many inter-promotional matches before. So 5 inter-promotion is unprecedented for our industry. So there will be 6 matches in total. One will be a Grapplemax Tag Team Championship match. That will be our local teams fighting each other. The other 5 are all Singapore versus Malaysia, including the main event, which is our champion, Hotshot, who's our Grapplemax Openweight champion. He's defending against his rival in Malaysia called the Wonder Boy. So that's how we're going to sort of pitch the 2 teams versus each other throughout the night.
Okay, and beyond the 2 heavyweights that you just mentioned, who are some characters in Grapplemax that fans listening in can go up and look and try and learn more about? Because as much as we want to entertain, we want to educate the listeners and help them have a better understanding.
Yeah. So I think we've got good guys, we've got bad guys. I think one of our more popular teams now are Showtime Inc., INC. So people like Kelvin, people like Julian. So they are actually in the same team, but they're facing off in a 3-way match to settle their own differences. So a lot of characters coming up in this show. We have someone who just returned from a 3-month trip in Japan for training called Lavin. So he is tagging with someone from Malaysia, Simon Sia.
Okay.
So a lot of different names who people can learn about on our socials at Grapplemax.
Oh, wow, exciting. We've already addressed the elephant in the room about whether wrestling is real, wrestling is fake. We both acknowledge that it's a performance, right? So talk to me about the preparations. How intense have the preparations been heading into Saturday's main event?
Yeah, I think it's a really big show. And I think with the big show brings a lot of pressure on the team as well to deliver on their expectations, especially being the 5th one of this series. The training itself is, it's for us, again, we train easily 5-6 days a week. So that is definitely not changing. I think where it gets challenging is when you put together different styles, right? So again, if you're wrestling your own guys in the same team, you sort of have a sense of this is what the Grapplemax style is like. But what happens when you bring in a whole different team, right? And they're coming down, say, the day before on Friday? How much can you really sort of work together on this match? So I think it's really training the team to be very good at working with different styles and really planning on the spot how to put together a really great match.
Let's talk about beyond the Causeway Jam. You talk about wanting to grow Grapplemax, doing more events like this. What's in the pipeline?
Yeah, so one thing we want to keep doing is, because we have our production studio, we're running a very high frequency of shows. So just for context, we've run about 60 events since we started in 2017, of which 23 were run in the last 2 years alone. So we're picking up intensity a lot, because the key thing here is the events are not just for the fans. It's also great for the wrestlers to get practice, right? Because in the end, honestly, someone told me once that, one live event is equivalent to 100 training sessions. Because once you have that live audience, everything changes as a performer. So one big goal for us is to keep up this high frequency of events. We're also building our academy called the Grapplemax NWE Academy. So we just launched our first academy show earlier this month as well. So there's going to be both a mix of academy events, which are really shorter, and you get to see the fledgling talent come through their initial experiences of wrestling, and also our main shows coming up on a monthly basis.
Wow, Greg, it looks like you've got all your bases covered in terms of everything that needs to happen for this community to thrive. In terms of this Causeway Jam, I know the tickets are sold out, which is fantastic news in terms of the reach. But can our listeners who don't have tickets possibly catch it online?
Yeah, so it'll all be on YouTube, probably about a few weeks after the event. So they can find it all at our socials. So they can follow at Grapplemax, one word, across the board: Instagram, YouTube, X, TikTok.
Okay, fantastic. I've saved this question for last, looking ahead to the Causeway Jam, right? In my mind, what makes a show great is the surprise elements, is the sudden shock factors. Without giving too much away, are fans in for a treat on that front?
I mean, they have to be, definitely, right? I probably can't tell you what the surprises are because then it wouldn't be a surprise. But I think the bigger thing for us is we have something there for both people who are new to our Grapplemax universe and also people who've been watching us for the last 8 years. And the key thing is we're all huge fans of, classic MCU. We love doing things like Easter eggs, callbacks, long-term storytelling. And everything we put into the show builds up to future shows as well. And that's where the surprises come in.
Oh, wow. You've really teased my appetite. If you're listening and you've got a ticket, enjoy the show on Saturday, but be sure to subscribe to Grapplemax on all those platforms that Greg mentioned to find out what the Easter eggs are, as well as continue to support the pro wrestling community in Singapore. We've been speaking to the CEO and co-founder of Grapplemax, Greg Ho. Greg, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Sports Minutes on Money FM 89.3.